any of it as items at any time. And, once if you change the quantities, you'd update the cart, flash keys here, submit the request. Okay? A lot like the maintenance direct, it can go. So if it starts with a teacher, in the classroom, this could go through the secretary or principal, or one of those site contacts for approval first, and then move on. Okay? Maybe some of these items are tested at the site, and they're going to distribute. You can have that set up that way as well. I'm sure I have some questions. I've done a lot of talking.
What we'd like to see, I think our primary focus right now would be for maintenance, use of material. I realize many of these are classroom, and we have a separate system for classroom inventory. But I think our primary interest in this category here would be for tracking the use of materials that the maintenance department may use for when they go out to make repairs at schools or whatever it may be, and those type things. We've gotten the request from the schools on your program here, and what we'd like to be able to do is to take that a step further and to see what materials are used on those projects.
Absolutely. So that's where the county for maintenance is. So maintenance direct, I went ahead and logged this here while you were talking. And let me show you how you can put the items right onto the work order.
Okay, would this coincide with the work order we already had then, right?
Yes. So this is the system. What you're seeing right in front of you is something you already own. Okay? And it can also be tied on your PM. The great thing about the PM, and I can show you this if you're interested, but you can actually tie, let's give an example of a filter. You're going to change a filter every 3 months. You can tie that piece of that inventory on when you set up the preventative maintenance schedule. And each time it's completed, it will debit that filter again and again, and you actually don't have to add it again. Okay? Then the other part here is for your reactive maintenance. So you've got some work in progress that's going to pull up here. Too cold in my room. I bet you never hear that one. And you hop down. It's down here in the transaction section. Right now, you all see purchase and labor transaction. Okay? If you add the module, you'll get this new issue transaction. So if it was too cold, it ended up being something that you had to change out a filter per se. They come in. Now, a couple ways to get. If you have a scanner, okay, it could even be a scanning app on your smartphone, or a scanner that connects through USB or Bluetooth. If you have a scanner, you can actually scan a barcode off the item and scan it on. All you have to do is have this pulled up, your cursor blinking right there. You scan it, it would bring in the number of the type, and you just tell me how many you put onto the work order. Okay, so we do have the ability to connect to the scanner. Otherwise, you would come through and tell us what it was by using the binoculars. This helps search for the items. These are all our filters. Let's put one of these on here. Tell Fresh, and it's going to say, where did you take it from? Okay, I keep these in 2 spots, but it looks like the trade shop is empty, so I would have had to have taken it from the main warehouse. And then I just use one, and I would submit. As I submit, it's going to automatically debit from my account. So when I go back to check the main warehouse for the number 8 filter, there's not going to be 22 anymore. There's going to be 21.
Ma'am?
Now,
Let me just interject once again. My name is Steve Priestley. I'm one of the board members here. But maybe if I just give you an idea of what we're looking for here. What we'd like to see, typically, our maintenance employees will go to a hardware store, oftentimes locally, and they will purchase the materials they need for a project. And there will be a work order at that site and all. So in this scenario, a school has a problem. Mr. Smith has identified it. He sends his men to the hardware store to get the materials after they decided what they needed. So we'd like to have something that would show when they go to that hardware store that what the materials they purchased, and then eventually we would like for if possible, we would also like to have, if school does this, to even be able to log in the time that they spent doing that particular job. That's kind of what we're looking for.
Okay, well, actually, your product already does that. So within Maintenance Direct, let me show you back down at that transaction section. So here, the new purchase transaction, this is where this function already exists in your work order system. And if somebody went out to the hardware store, they would come back onto their work order, and they can enter in what type of supply, was it materials, did they have to pay a contractor? They can put the supplier in, was it Lowe's, Home Depot, if they use a PO number, a purchase order to get that, the description of what it was is required. So maybe, for example, we'll start with that filter example, and they bought a filter, and they bought two, and they cost, $10 a piece. They can file taxes, and then they would submit. They can add many purchases, so it refreshes and it gives me a blank one. So if I bought, anything else while I was there, I can tie it onto that work order.
As long as that was that same project, would that be, those two tied together? If I might need more than one, well, it could be a filter and a screen or something, or whatever else, so that particular project this would reflect all the materials we used for that particular project.
It would. Mm-hmm.
If it were entered that way, right?
Yes, if it were entered that way. Now, if you go, you obviously wouldn't want to go to Lowe's per se and buy 10 things that, not all 10 had to do with this work order. You would have to put them where they belong, okay?
Right.
And then with the labor, though, that you mentioned, you already have that functionality as well. The new labor transaction is here. You click in. It allows the technician. Now, this is kind of a more detailed view. In the technician view of the product, they, on their home screen, they can log their hours, okay? They can also do something like this. So if they worked on something, maybe Monday, they worked just for a half an hour, but then come Tuesday, they put 2 more hours in. We can save that all right there. And if we total it up, so I'll show you, let me save that. And when I go back to the work order now, and I'm going to go down to the transaction section again, it's going to indicate these 2 different dates. And you'll notice that it shows my date, so it doesn't lump all the labor together. Now it does total it up. And when you set up your folks, you can put in their labor costs, so it would do the multiplication. Now, we also have the ability, so Scotty, this is who this one is assigned out to. Let's say Bill helps Scotty. Bill can put his labor hours on Scotty's work orders. When Scotty looks at it, he won't be able to see Bill's costs, though. Only the administrators in the system can see everybody's numbers. I know that's always important.
Well,
Those 2 functionalities, like I said, the purchases and the labor, that's already existing in your Maintenance Direct system.